We are checking out Nerdrotics. Marvel is dead. Secret Invasion is abysmal. I might pause it a few times if I have something to add, but let's check out and see what he has to say.
Nerdrotic.com.
Welcome you over 817,000 practitioners of common sense.
Dude,
and
he's
40%
picking
who
up
haven't
fast.
subscribed yet. Just when you thought things could get any worse for Disney, here comes Disney Marvel to say, hold my Bud Light. Sure, the last thing Disney Marvel put out turned out to be pretty good, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, but as I said in that review, that is an obvious holdover from better times, and now we are back to our regularly scheduled MCU programming. And the timing couldn't have been worse. Well, I'm sure it's got something to do with the political fight they got into Florida, going against the family when you're a family brand, losing 4 million subscribers on D+ in the second quarter, losing almost $1 billion in theatrical releases just in the last year, and that's not counting Indiana Jones and the Depends of Destiny, losing over $4 billion on the aforementioned D+ streaming service. Add to that the hundreds of millions they lost closing the Galactic Star Cruiser and the $325 million they lost in the last year on the cruise ships. So no, it hasn't been a very good year for Disney, and you just hate to see it. So after all that, what's the significance of a little D+ show that nobody watched called Secret Invasion? It's probably just a fart in the wind, and I would agree with that until I saw the last episode. The MCU is here to stay. As you may or may not know, Secret Invasion is a follow-up to Captain Marvel without Captain Marvel that will lead to the Captain Marvel sequel called The Marvels, originally called Captain Marvel 2 until our titular character was demoted.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
A film that requires you to watch 3 shows you probably didn't. WandaVision, Miss Marvel, and Secret Invasion.
WandaVision
Secret
was
Invasion
fine.
is very loosely based on the comic book series from Marvel, which came out of the events of
that looks
Annihilation,
cool.
which is one of the single best crossovers they've ever done, and leads it into Dark Reign. Now, when I say loosely based, the only thing they have in common is the title. Secret Invasion, the D+ streaming show, is about a genocidal maniac Skrull named Gravik who wants to exterminate humanity because Nick Fury broke a promise to him when he was 9. The very sad and broken Nick Fury is aided by a couple of very powerful girl bosses who do all the heavy lifting while they continually remind him that he is sad and broken as he embraces his strange kind of love. How strange?
You know, like, there's nothing wrong with, as a writer, having a character age, but you have to do it right. You have to do it right. And in this show, I felt like Nick Fury never came back into his own. He never really quite, regained what he had lost. Also, the show should have started where it ended. Like, that's where the show could have been cool. But it's like the show is like a giant prequel to a better show that.
Strange.
Well, how about that?
We will most certainly get into that later, and it's not even the worst thing. It's not like Nick Fury hasn't already been vandalized. We found out in Captain Marvel, if you did see it, and if you didn't, you're much better off, that instead of being the veteran of foreign wars and a lifelong super spy, he was essentially a pencil pusher who got his eye scratched out by a kitty cat. I mean,
so
we
freaking
say this a
stupid.
lot with Disney Marvel, but how much worse could it get? It turns out a lot. And this has become a staple for Disney Plus shows, particularly with Disney Marvel. Secret Invasion starts out just bad. Bad acting, bad writing, bad editing, poor execution overall, but not the worst thing I've seen on this platform. And by the end of the series,
was good.
it's extraordinarily bad. It
That fight was so
pulverizes the
stupid.
character of Nick Fury and completely upends what's left of the MCU, which isn't much. And I would be remiss not to mention that in the middle of a Writers Guild and a Film Actors Guild strike, partially over AI, the opening credits are made by
Yeah. Well, to clarify, it was made by a CG artist who was using an AI tool. Yes, they use AI tools to make it, but it was still people getting paid to do that. Just for some clarification is all.
very first frames of this streaming show when they say present day. When it's not present day in the MCU, it's 2025, which is an interesting coincidence because that's the very same year that most of their content, due to the aforementioned strike, has been delayed to. Now that the WGA and the Film Actors Guild is on strike, you might have noticed that it's been kind of quiet, kind of nice. Coincidentally, there's also 2 films absolutely killing it at the box office right now. But before all that, Sam Jackson did his very best on brand Disney Marvel pissing off fans you can't afford to lose. From the Citadel of Journalism Vibe on June 23rd, 2023, Samuel L. Jackson compares redneck Donald Trump to 1960s bigots. Then he followed that up by throwing Brie Larson under the bus, saying the election of Donald Trump broke her. Well, in fact, it broke her, Samuel L. Jackson, and the rest of Hollywood beyond repair. Forgive me for stating the obvious, but whether you like Donald Trump or not, people are sick of hearing this. No one wants to hear how an election of a former president broke a couple of millionaires who pretend for a living. And I have very little doubt that that contributed to it being the second lowest viewed Marvel show on D+. And it's currently sitting at a 4.1% user score on Metacritic, and it's sitting at a 58% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, which is only 2 percentage points higher than the critic score. And I'd also like to remind you that a lot of the critics get the first couple of episodes and they don't review the entire season. Again, Secret Invasion started out as an inconsequentially bad show, forgettable but not the worst thing I've seen on that platform, until the final episode where they went next level MCU. And episode 6 just so happens to be the lowest rated Disney Marvel show on the crap form.
Because
currently
it was
sitting at
stupid.
time of recording at 8%.
Stupid.
Unlike the Secret Invasion comic, which this is very loosely based on, that featured the New Avengers, the Mighty Avengers, the Inhumans, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four. The Disney Plus adaptation, which should now take over the Netflix adaptation meme, does have 2 Super Skrulls, including Gravik, our brand new villain. The 9-year-old boy that Nick Fury broke a promise to is all grown up now and pissed off. Gravik is played by Kingsley Ben-Adir, who you may know from Barbie. Speaking of Barbie, the Kens plan to take over Barbie Land makes a hell of a lot more sense than the Skrulls plan in Secret Invasion, which includes a few Skrulls secretly becoming Super Skrulls so they can fight the Avengers while they are simultaneously starting World War III in the hopes that it will wipe out the entire human race. All so they can take the Earth as their home. And again, this is all because one guy from a technically inferior race couldn't find them a home.
Have you lost your reptilian ass mind?
That's right, the Skrulls are a technically advanced race capable of interstellar space travel who just fought a war with another technically advanced race capable of interstellar space travel, the Kree. So let me get this straight. The Skrulls can travel to Earth in spaceships, make magic bullshit machines that can give them the DNA of the Avengers, but you can't get in your own ship and find your own home? To be fair, Captain Marvel could find the Skrulls a planet, and she did break the promise as well, although that's conveniently forgotten for most of this series.
This is the promise. While you work to keep my home safe, Carol Danvers and I will find you a new one.
But unfortunately for the Skrulls, the unpopular Captain Marvel was played by the unpopular Brie Larson, who became so unpopular they could only put her in the contractually obligated minimum amount of films.
I don't know. Does anyone want me to do it again?
Hell no!
Now, if you recall from Captain Marvel, the Skrulls were used as an immigration allegory, and I'm not sure if this was intentional, but if you play it all the way through, an immigrant spacefaring race comes to Earth, refuses to assimilate and contribute to the culture, then gets pissed off because they don't get free stuff, and they turn on their host. Based.
Well, yeah, that could very well be the message there, but I don't think that was intentional. But yeah, it's just the writing is so bad, right? The way it's all set up and stuff, it's just not very good. I don't know what to say.
Udrika
So it's bad.
Bajua Shush Kajushak Lucky Cook.
Speaking of allegories, we have a new character that just so happens to be Nick Fury's wife and a Skrull, Priscilla,
She was cool.
who also happens to be completely allied with the terrorist Skrull Gravik. Now, she did go against the order that came from Gravik to kill her husband Nick Fury, but she didn't seem to have a problem with the rest of humanity being completely wiped out. Priscilla, played by Charlene Woodward, was a completely unnecessary character, and you didn't need to give Nick Fury a wife this late in the game. But she wasn't just put in to sideline Nick Fury so all the women can do all the heavy lifting while he's sits around in long, boring scenes talking about his relationship. No, the reason they put Priscilla the Scroll in as Nick Fury's wife is it comes with a message. They're trying to tell us something.
Would you have loved me if I'd never changed? If I'd been my true self? I love you as I am.
Only as you are.
Message!
Now, I know it's subtle, but I think I'm picking up what they're putting down there.
Hey, take a look at that.
You need to settle down and mind your business, okay?
I could be wrong.
It's
I
an
think you're
affront to
wrong.
the very delicacy of my nature.
No?
It is ma'am!
Okay. Speaking of girl bosses, we have a
I
new
don't-
character
Hey,
named Sonya.
here's my issue with a lot of with a lot of YouTubers more on the conservative side. I'm apolitical, by the way, but we tend to read things into it a lot. Like when I watched Secret Invasion, I thought, the only message there was, you're supposed to love people as they are and just be honest and open. I didn't think there was anything else I didn't feel like there was any other heavy-handed message there, and I personally try really hard not to bring any political baggage to a show before I watch it. I really like to just let the authors, say explicitly what they want to say explicitly, and then things that are left, very subtle and stuff, I leave open to interpretation. I don't take my political baggage and throw it onto the show and then get offended what I think the show may or may not be trying to say. And for those of you who are wondering, for me, being apolitical doesn't mean I don't have opinions. It just means I don't label that some ideas may fall under. So sometimes I have a liberal opinion, sometimes I have a conservative opinion. It's like whatever my best thoughts help me arrive to. It's just a lot easier, and I don't have to get offended by things that may or may not, be poking at a particular bubble of people. Let me put it that way. It's awesome, and just staying inside my bubble, I'd like to be able to survey the entire landscape without being too offended, to ensure that I'm actually, being reasonable with my thoughts. But anyways, that's just me.
Sonya Falsworth, played by Olivia Colman, doing her best Olivia Colman, which is a cheeky British girl boss, and for the most part, she's fine in this series, and quite frankly, she takes all the best scenes from Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury, but I'm okay with it because Samuel L. Jackson was terrible in this. That is, of course, until the end when she becomes a window-licking moron like the rest of the cast. Again, she's probably the best thing in this show, but unfortunately, she is the descendant of a character we would all rather see, Union Jack, but that's the MCU for you. Ben Mendelsohn returns and is wasted once again as Talos, the deposed leader wallowing in his own failure because he trusted another failure, Nick Fury. We find out over the course of the series that Talos is single-handedly responsible for bringing 1 million Skrulls to Earth. How exactly did the Skrulls expect the room temperature IQ humans of the MCU to find them a home when they didn't even notice 1 million Skrulls dropping from the sky? There's also the added bonus of Talos being hated by his daughter, Gaia, who we'll get to, but that's okay. He doesn't last long. They eventually kill him off, and that's a mercy killing because this is the MCU. This brings us to...
That made me so mad. He was like Ben Mendelsohn was great in that role. He was like the best part of Captain Marvel movie, and that movie was okay. Like, it was fine. Brie Larson was pretty dry. He was dry as a stick in a desert in that movie. But Ben Mendelsohn was great. And like when he died, it was like, wait, why? Why would you kill off this great character that I really so many good characters for no payoff, for no reason. Like, it didn't further. It was just not good. It's like, hey, let's kill off a random character that the fans like to make it feel like it has stakes, but none of it made any sense, so it didn't work. No, I don't know.
James Rhodey Rhodes, the War Machine. Now,
he's about to say his acting was great in the show. He was a boss. He was great.
Don't worry, we don't see the War Machine at all. played by the very mentally stable Don Cheadle, who in this series does his best impression of a host from The View playing the bitchiest of queens. There is an explanation for this.
I thought he was good.
James Rhodey Rhodes was a Skrull, but not just any Skrull, a female Skrull. But that's not all, according to Secret Invasion director Elise Salem. James Rhodes has been a Skrull since Civil War. I think his leg's not working in the end of episode 6, and him being in the hospital gown points to Captain America Civil War. I can't even begin to tell you how many continuity problems that creates for the MCU, but let's just point out one. The Skrulls needed Nick Fury to find them a new hospitable planet. Well, it just so happens that the James Rhodes Skrull was on one in Endgame when they killed Thanos the first time. Looks pretty nice, doesn't it? And again, there's too many problems to count. He doesn't know Tony Stark is dead. He wasn't at Tony Stark's funeral. He wasn't at the battle in Infinity War. He wasn't at the Battle of Endgame. He wasn't in this scene in Falcon and Winter Soldier. And now it's time to talk about the show's main character, Nick Fury, who Disney Marvel has turned into Nick Fury.
I don't get the whole dog thing. What's to get? You know, dog's a man's best friend.
Just in case you didn't catch it the multiple times they told us in this thankfully short 6-episode series, Nick Fury is sad and broken after the blip. And just in case you didn't notice, he's black.
Going for a walk.
You going for a walk in Moscow at night? You're gonna stand out.
So they go out of their way to point out that Nick Fury might stand out in Russia, but it's completely okay for this Skrull to wander around without a problem. And then there's this. Let's recap again. Nick Fury from the comics, who didn't look like Samuel L. Jackson, at least in the 616, was a veteran of foreign wars and a super spy. Nick Fury, who is Samuel L. Jackson in the MCU, was a pencil pusher who lost his eye to a kitty cat and a total fraud.
When I came here in 1995, you were just a bench woman nobody in a dumpy field office in S.H.I.E.L.D.
Bench warmer?
Yeah, and that's honestly kind of sad. And for the record, I have no problem with race swapping characters. I think Samuel L. Jackson, for the most part, has been fantastic in this role, and I got no problem with the fact that they cast him in it. The only time when you shouldn't race swap a character is when the race and ethnical background of that character is intrinsic to their story and their arc and who they are as a character, like Black Panther. You'd never cast a white dude to play Black Panther because that wouldn't make sense. But, you know, for a character who's more based, like Nick Fury, who's just based on who he is and his character in and of himself, you know, it doesn't really matter. So I'm totally fine with Nick Fury being Samuel L. Jackson. That's fine. He wasn't all that good in this show. And yeah, I think it is a shame that they continue to neuter characters to write easier stories. Like, I don't understand why Marvel can't just level up the stakes of this story. It's like they're so trapped in their keeping things continuity that they don't even make like really high stakes stuff, and they don't even keep the continuity very well anymore, as we've just seen.
You know, we fed you more dirt and intel than you could have uncovered on your own in a lifetime. So please, every enemy you sabotaged and ally you leveraged with dirt no one else in the world had access to, we did that.
Seems to be on brand for the MCU.
You got any more abuse you want to hurl my way?
I think that's a question for Kevin Feige. Samuel L. Jackson is awful in this show. He meanders from scene to scene as this sad and broken man, and there's no real character arc for Nick Fury. It's a character line. He begins sad and broken and ends this show sad and broken. And he doesn't even get to kill the big bad Gravik in his own show. But he does get to save President Dylan Mulvaney. I'm sorry, Dermot Mulroney. So after the Skrulls tried to destroy humanity by A, killing 2,000 people in a bombing in Russia, trying to launch a nuclear bomb, and trying to kill the president, President Mulvaney, Mulroney, finally makes a logical decision, which of course Nick Fury calls a hateful speech.
The terrorists responsible were a shape-shifting, alien-born species known as Skrulls. We know who you are.
I mean, it was.
We know how to find you.
Yeah.
And we will kill every last one of you.
I was relieved that we made it out alive. I was relieved too. Till I watched that hateful ass speech you made.
So what is Nick Fury to do after he brought the
Stupid.
Skrulls to Earth, who brought 1 million more Skrulls? He didn't kill the bad guy Gravik and didn't tell the Avengers, but which in turn has completely destabilized the planet. Does he stay and deal with the problem, or fuck off to space with his new wife to embrace his strange kind of love? If you chose he fucked off to space with his wife to female character, you got it right. This brings us to Gaia, the real hero of Secret Invasion. Like I said, this show was mostly boring until it went next level in episode 6, but I do have to credit Emilia Clarke for not changing her facial expression for 6 entire episodes. But as bad as all of that was that I've already gone over in this crap show, this is by far the worst. We have this expressionless Emilia Clarke. Wandering through this show, somehow she's either infiltrating the Skrulls on the orders of her father Talos or running away from Talos. I'm not really sure, it depends on what episode you watched. But the character and plot inconsistencies and contrivances are nothing compared to this. Little Emilia Clarke's Gaia becomes the most powerful superhero in the MCU. Now, Gravik was also a Super Skrull, but he wasn't as powerful as little Emilia Clarke because he's a man. Once again, the technically advanced, spacefaring Skrulls who needed the technically inferior humans to find them a home that will turn them into Super Skrulls. All they needed was DNA, and they got part of the way there. They got the Extremis, probably from either Aldrich Killian or maybe even Tony Stark. They got it from Groot, not sure how they did that because he's a tree, and they also got it from the Avengers, which Nick Fury had the Skrulls conveniently collect after the Battle for Earth in Endgame, all put in a magic in a fake gravestone. Nick Fury, the super spy who's supposed to be one step ahead of everyone but ends up lagging behind this entire series, ends up just giving it to Gravik through Emilia Clarke's Gaia, who's disguised as Nick Fury. Gravik turns on the magic bullshit machine with Nick Fury inside, realizing it was Gaia too late, and he makes 2 Super Skrulls. And that is followed up with one of the worst CGI battles I've ever seen.
Terrible.
And obviously, Emilia Clarke's Gaia's magic bullshit machine works so well, it can pass on things through DNA like rings, tattoos, and superhero poses. And I remind you, dear viewer, that both Gravik and Gaia now possess almost every superpower of every...
So stupid.
Think that they're pretty evenly matched despite the size difference between Gravik and Emilia Clarke, and they'd be locked into battle forever, especially with that Extremis healing power, but that's not the case. This is the MCU, and Gaia wins easily. But despite being the most powerful superhero in the MCU, Gaia does have one weakness. She needs a booster seat to drive. So Fury's big plan was to give the Avengers DNA to Gaia in the hopes that she would give it to Gravik, and then they would both be made Super Skrulls and she would win in the end.
Not a great plan.
And the only thing accomplished was they killed Gravik, the million Skrulls are still out there, and they're still pissed, and now they're being hunted. And I would like to remind you that the writers of the show are currently on strike because they want more money. And it wouldn't be a Disney Marvel show without a couple of girl bosses taking a shot at the male characters.
Would you like to tell me all about it?
No, our work here is far too
Not you. Dr. Dalton, you.
The males in my species are very similar. If they're not busy gaslighting you, they're threatening you with murder. That's what all the podcasts are about. Yes, well, let's be sure not to repeat the mistakes of Talos and Fury and leave love and friendship out of this.
God damn, these motherfuckers don't do shit.
Is Secret Invasion the worst thing Disney Marvel has put on Disney Plus? Maybe. I would say that the finale is almost as bad as She-Hulk, but Secret Invasion does as much damage to the overall Marvel Cinematic Universe as Loki and Doctor Strange Mom. And after unfortunately watching this twice, I still have a lot of questions that honestly, I don't care if they ever get answered. Why is a universe with so many girl bosses so incompetent? So all the Skrulls were mad that Nick Fury broke a promise. How did Captain Marvel get a pass? Explain to me why it's hateful to want an invading species that tried to wipe out the human race and has currently stolen the lives of millions of humans off the planet or dead. The writing of this show is a good argument for AI because it would be more human. Why did the writers of this show decide to follow the one good Nick Fury moment?
And you wonder why you're out. I'm Nick Fury. Even when I'm out, I'm in.
With this.
Even when I'm out,
I'm in.
The
How
show
the fuck has Rhodey been a Skrull
sucks.
since Civil War? You know, it would make a lot more sense if you told me Kevin Feige was a Skrull since Civil War. Whose bright idea was it to make Amelia Clark an action star, much less the most powerful superhero in the MCU? How
Kevin
did Disney
Feige's-
Marvel get so bad at adapting their own intellectual property? They were supposed to be the ones to get it right. That answer is easy. Marvel died when they were bought by Disney. Why does everyone at Disney hate their own male characters? Another easy answer. The patriarchy. When the hell is somebody going to do something about... I can't believe they killed Maria Hill for this garbage. All
That's
this over
so
a broken promise.
stupid.
Wait till the Skrulls find out about Santa Claus. And it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone to hear that the lowest rated Disney Marvel show on D+ was still being edited while the series was airing. Secret Invasion director appears to admit series was cobbled together in the editing room even as they were releasing new episodes.
Well, that
Director
explains
Ali
it.
Salim appeared to reveal that later episodes in the entire story of the series was being put together as they released the first episode.
Are you kidding
And I
me?
think as we were editing, we're still finding the story. We were finding the story on episode 6 up until episode 1 had already aired. And believe it or not, Secret Invasion required 28 months of production and cost $212 million for this crap. To sum it up, it's just another Disney Marvel.
It's
A complete dismantling of another Marvel legacy character. Like I've
Like,
said
it's
before,
just
Disney
stupid.
didn't start the MCU, but they're sure as hell gonna finish it, and that time has come. Just like their fellow subsidiary Disney Star Wars, Disney Marvel has become a zombie franchise. It's still moving, but it doesn't make it any less dead. If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you heard, I thank you for listening this long. I will see you in the next video.
Nerdrotic.com.
cool. So do I think Marvel is dead? It's on its way there. Not. I think Deadpool 3 will be amazing. I think Loki 2 looks good. I thought Loki was good, except for like the last 3 episodes of Loki 2 were not as good as the first 2. But I thought Loki was cool, and I'm excited for season 2. So make sure you like and subscribe, and I will be checking that out and following that along. But yeah, it's just, see, I don't like to get on the whole anti this, anti that train. Like, I try to be like very, very chill about the politics and things like that. But I gotta admit, it's becoming very, very difficult for me to deny that male characters in Marvel are constantly getting neutered and getting weaker arcs when the female characters are being poorly propped up with also weak arcs, but just made to look more strong, but ending up being kind of dry and unrelatable to begin with. Yeah, it's getting harder and harder to deny that, because I don't like to get into the whole, I'm an optimist. I'm an optimistic guy. I like to think that, the people at Marvel have it together, and they're not trying to throw politics into it and, bash the entire fan base to hopefully prop up women, which is not how you do that, by the way. Like, an empowering character. If you are a competent writer, you can write a empowering female character without tearing down other powerful male characters. If you are a competent writer, it can be done. You can have both powerful, empowering male characters and powerful female characters working together, fighting it out, bouncing off each other, and have a fantastic show. If you're a good writer. But that's not what we got here. So, and to be fair, I know he mentioned the writer's strike. I support writers getting a fair wage. I think it's ridiculous that Emmy-nominated, Emmy-winning writers are having difficulty paying rent. I think that's ridiculous. Because as we've seen, this show is being cobbled together in the editing room. Why? Because the script wasn't good when they started. They had 28 months to make this thing. If they had a good script, they wouldn't have had to do that. And so writing is so important, and we need to start paying good writers and focus on writing a great story. Let's think about it. If you're having to pay If you're having to choose between buying coffee and paying for a cab to get to work and worrying about paying your rent, how are you supposed to focus on writing a fantastic story? Like, pay your writers more and maybe you'll get better material out of them. You know, like, it's like everybody needs to step up, in my opinion. Like, he's right about a lot of things, and you know, it's getting harder and harder to deny that the see, I'm still holding on. It's gonna get better, and to be honest, I think it will get better. I like the money talks, right? Money talks. The money is down, and so either figure out how to make good stuff and get people back in again, but it's gonna take some time. It'll take like 2 years, at least 2 years. Maybe the Marvels will be okay. The trailer looks mid, like it could go either way. It could either be really bad or really good, or just somewhere in the middle. Thank you so much for taking the time. Make sure to subscribe down below so you never miss another video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.